The big story this week remains in Davos, Switzerland. We've heard the blathering lunatics going on about how they know what's best for the world and mostly what's best for everyone else on the planet. Can you imagine getting up every day and setting out to tell everyone else what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do? And can you imagine doing that using completely false narratives about migration, climate change, misinformation, and those evil dictators waiting in the wings? While the real threat to the world is exactly those things that are being pursued by you. Now, it seems to me that the greatest projectionism ever witnessed is happening again in Davos this week. But a few people stood up and threw it in their elitist faces over the past few days. People like the new president of Argentina, Javier Milei, who says the socialist, collectivist mentality is a failure. And he was terrific. And more importantly, he was right. But I must say the best in show for me goes to the president of the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts, who was with us last week on the program, who completely leveled the entire globalist agenda and the false case against former President Donald Trump. He did it in about 4 or 5 minutes. And first, he laid down the guidelines for all the so-called elites in attendance to hear what he had to say loud and clear.
The kind of person, and I'll be candid here because I think I've been invited here to be candid. The kind of person who will come into the next conservative administration is going to be governed by one principle, and that is destroying the grasp that political elites and unelected technocrats have over the average person. And if I may, I will be candid and say that the agenda that every single member of the administration needs to have is to compile a list of everything that's ever been proposed at the World Economic Forum and object all of them wholesale. Anyone not prepared to do that and take away this power of the unelected bureaucrats and give it back to the American people is unprepared to be part of the next conservative administration.
I completely agree. Reject everything that comes out of Davos. Reject everything that comes from these elitists like John Kerry and Al Gore and Klaus Schwab. It seems the World Economic Forum invited people like Milei and Heritage's Kevin Roberts because they are very scared of the possibility of a Donald Trump presidency, which is becoming more real by the day, and what that could mean for their globalist agenda and plans. They also know that conservatives around the world don't trust them one bit, as you just heard, and for good reason. So they're trying to get a sense of what real conservatives think after decades of thinking they know, but actually know nothing about us. They don't know me or what I believe. And Roberts certainly let them know, because once he was rolling, he just kept picking up speed. He leaned into the list, into the agenda of the things that must be targeted first by President Trump or whomever has the chance to dismantle this globalist mess. And he had very specific items to deal with. Things that he says Donald Trump will fight for to protect average Americans going forward beginning January of 2025. Listen.
It's laughable that you would, or anyone would, describe Davos as protecting liberal democracy. It's equally,
standing up for it.
It's equally laughable to use the word dictatorship at Davos and aim that at President Trump. In fact, I think that's absurd. But I'm going to step aside from that constructive criticism and instead answer your question.
Yep.
And I'm going to be substantive here. President Trump, if he's the next president, for that matter, I think whoever the next conservative president is going to take on the power of the elites, which I mentioned earlier. But the thing that I want to drive home here, the very reason that I'm here at Davos, is to explain to many people in this room and who are watching, with all due respect, nothing personal, but that you're part of the problem. Political elites tell the average people on 3 or 4 or 5 issues that the reality is X, when in fact reality is Y. Take immigration. Elites tell us that open borders and even illegal immigration are okay. The average person tells us in the United States that both rob them of the American way of life. They're right. President Trump will take that on behalf of the average American.
And Kevin Roberts, he, of course, is absolutely right. Those in Davos tell us that unfettered immigration is a good thing. And we should allow millions of people completely unvetted and some incompatible with our way of life to just come into our country for the betterment of the world, you see.